I just started the
That was
recording.
fast. Yes, great.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. So just to start, to give you an idea, because we know the schedule can become complicated sometimes, is that we are here. We are in what we call week 1. This is the first cohort call where we get to know each other. The curriculum module that is associated to this week is called Week 1, Welcome to Open Hardware Makers. And next call will be your mentor call. So next week you will meet your mentor and not us, okay? That is something important to bear in mind. So up to now, you have, if you have been following our emails, you have been through week 0, which is OHM basics. It's really how this program works. It's nothing more than that, but you should be familiar with it so you're not lost. Let us know if you have any questions about that. And we are now in week 1, which is Welcome to OHM. And Welcome to OHM is more about working open. What does working open mean? And what does working open mean for hardware, which is usually not as popular as software or data? Again, lots of students coming back and in. So I promise that quarter past this will finish. So agenda for today. We are gonna talk about what can open do for you and what it cannot do for you. And we're gonna discuss that a little. We are gonna introduce the Open Hardware Canvas. You are gonna discuss your mentorship expectations for next week. And we are gonna discuss also how the curriculum adapts to your project, which are the expectations you have also in general for this program. So as I will insist all along the call, add your name to the notes, add your comments to the notes. It's the best way. Alex will be checking the document, so it's the best way to interact with us. So let's start with what can Open do for you? And just FYI, for information, what we are going to do in this cohort calls is 2 things. We're going to pick up some topics from the curriculum that we think are key that you work on. You will have to work on the curriculum yourself. Well, okay, there are assignments to do there. You will have to work on that on your own, but during the cohort calls, we're going to select some key things, key aspects of the curriculum and work on them together. The idea is that you discuss in a group discussion, but also kind of a peer review, 1-1 with the breakout rooms. So from the curriculum, what can Open do for you? Well, working open can improve your project or product, and we see this in open source software, and we see it in open source hardware. And it can improve it because even if you're great, you may not have all the best ideas in the world, and you can really benefit from exchanging ideas on, for example, how other people are adapting your project to their own contexts. And therefore, you can have not only variations or forks of your hardware, but also performance improvement of your hardware that you didn't think of before. On the other hand, second, quite related to this, is that working open gets you closer to your users and their needs. So there is a lot about open hardware and user-led innovation, as they call it. Sometimes is people, because the hardware design is open, people just start building it and modifying the hardware to suit their own needs. And that is great, right? Because if not, if this was closed source, you should make a lot of effort to try to approach your users to understand what they need. And here, just have it easier, right? And third, again, these are all tightly related. Working open allows your project to achieve its maximum impact. And when we talk about impact, is what difference your project is making out there. Usually when we think of impact, we think of how a project, maybe you heard this, but many projects exist out there that you don't know if there is a clear reason for them to exist. I don't know if this happened to you, or you came across many projects that's like, why is this innovation happening? Like, there's no use for this, which is fine for fun. But if you want to increase impact of your project, best thing to do is to be in contact with the reality out there, to be in contact with the users that are going to use them, to try to understand which are the pathways for your project to become useful outside your bubble. And openness is great for that. So that is the way it maximizes impact, besides making it more visible and more kind of giving a window for your project. Okay. On the other hand, there are things that Working Open cannot do for you, and this is quite important to have in mind, which is it's not a way for getting free labor. It's not, which is a very common understanding. Oh, I need a developer. I will make it open. So developers want to contribute to open source. I will just, that's not the way. You can get contributions, but that's another thing. That's a different mindset, and we'll talk about that. Working Open is not a way to hit a deadline faster. I want my MVP by next month. I'm gonna make it open. That won't happen. Working Open requires a lot of work. And it's not a way to avoid process structure. And this is super important because we think of Working Open and it's like, great, everyone does everything. And that is a recipe for disaster, usually. So in open projects, there is a structure. There are people who make decisions. And part of the work of open hardware makers is trying to understand how those decisions are made in order for everyone to get something out of openness. So I'm trying to pass, yeah, there. So what we're going to do now, because I talked enough, is to have a general discussion on these things we talked about, but apply to your project. So you can either leave comments on the notes, or you can just unmute yourself and tell us first, if you want to tell us a little about what was your path to open hardware makers, but also what do you think Working Open can do for your project? And if you anticipate also any challenges of going open, or anything that you think, okay, maybe going open, I think could help me this way, but I'm not so sure, and it will demand a lot of work. That is really useful also to exchange. So I can start if you want to. I think that will make it easier. My path to open was through my research. I realized that there was a lot of people interested in citizen science, let's say data on air quality. And there were lots of data sets all around, and all of them were incompatible. So we wanted something open, and instead of creating yet another air quality monitor, we just downloaded one and we created one. And the benefits of going open was that that project was super visible back home, where from Argentina, where I am. But the challenges were that because there was no structure, that project was a mess, and I had a really hard time. So feel free to unmute yourselves and share what's your experience or what do you expect from Working Open.
Yeah, you can also leave us comments, and I see that there are already some questions answered in the document. Yeah, Alex, for example, says that what was his path to the program? Well, that Andreas asked him if he would like to join. Yeah, you can either unmute yourself. Oh, I see, Order, you want to say something? Please go ahead.
Yeah, I'm happy to jump in. Hi, everyone. Answering kind of what was your path to Open Hardware Maker, and why did I decide kind of to join this? I'm actually very new in the whole process of working open. So I never kind of done any project open, but I use a lot of other GitHub repository and other projects that have been kind of publicly happening. So I actually discovered the Open Hardware Maker through the GOSH platform, so the Gathering for Open Science Hardware. And the whole idea of sharing things with others is something for me very valuable, because I don't see the point of doing repeatedly constant, doing exactly the same thing in your corner. So yeah, I think this is why I came into here, to really help others just start much more in advance than from scratch.
Thank you. That's great, because I think that's a huge point that we all share here. Or if you don't, just let us know. But not reinventing the wheel, or reinventing it because you want to learn something, but not just because you can't do anything else. I think Andreas has his hand raised.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. Andreas from Munich, Germany here. So what was my path into Working Open? So I started, or I get in contact with open hardware when I tried to open a fab lab here in Munich, like 12 years ago. And that was the time that also the RepRap project came popular. So that was the first open hardware project I knew of. And at that time, it was really interesting for us because we didn't have any money, and that was the only way to get a 3D printer into our lab. And yeah, that's a theme that continued to be relevant for us at the Fab Lab until today. Yeah, open hardware machinery has a lot of advantages for places like Fab Labs or maker spaces. Well, first of all, you can build it yourself, or if you don't build it yourself, you can fix it yourself. There are all the plans available, and you can improve on it. And there's a lot of a great community behind it. A lot of people you can ask about it, and so it's much more suitable to such a place than conventional machines. But since when I've been part of open hardware projects myself, but more, well, the challenges we had is, well, we concentrated mostly on the technical things. And so what we were not good at, or what we just didn't do very well, was like building a community, reaching out to other people, documentation. So all the things around the actual project, which is something I want to learn here. And I want to take it as a challenge, or as well. It's a good way to well, the current project where I participating with open hardware makers is called Stereo Ninja, and we want to take it as an opportunity to just to make things right this time. We're still already working on the technical things, but all the rest is still, yeah, not there basically. And yeah, that's what I'm hoping to do here.
That's great, Andrea. I think we were smiling a lot because we know what you're talking about, right? And I don't know, Alex, what you think, but for me, it's my expectation that you, through applying what you learn to a specific project here, then you learn a method that you can apply to any other project you have later on. Yesterday, in another call, in the other cohort call, someone said like, oh, finally working open all these years, and finally I have a contributor, like a good contributor online. And we said, yeah, maybe the goal of open hardware makers could be to just reduce some of the pain of trying to get contributors or of trying to work open, because we tend to try to do it intuitively, and sometimes we kind of fail miserably. Sorry, how do I pronounce your name? Sorry, you're muted.
You're muted.
Sorry, mute. It's called Aude, so it's a French name. I'm from Switzerland, but yeah,
cool.
French part. Yeah, I also wanted to add to your point, Violetta, that in the project I'm working with, there is very different skill of people, and a lot are from ecology background, but doesn't necessarily have a software or coding or even programming or hardware practices. And for them, they are really interested in using this tool, but they don't know where to start. So they feed a lot in their knowledge into developing the project. And then on the contribution, they have a tool that they can use much more easily to facilitate their work. So I see not necessarily a contribution in terms of a programming contribution or electronic contribution, but really also an exchange of knowledge between an interdisciplinary team of people.
That's absolutely, you nailed it, because especially when you're talking about science hardware, right? There is a lot of expert knowledge that is not developer knowledge. Alex?
I just wanted to add that also Alex, the other Alex, added that for him it's the only useful way to get high quality user and community feedback, and like really true feedback. Maybe that's what I might want to add there. And yeah, that's also a nice point.
Right. Yes, feedback is, I think, one of the most important parts towards impact and towards a better project, right? Should we move on? And Alex, I am not looking at the time, so feel free to unmute yourself and say move on. Okay.
Oh, that's fine. I think we should move on now.
Great, thank you. So Alex will now introduce the Open Hardware Canvas, which is something we specifically developed for this program and we hope it's useful for you.
Yeah, exactly. This is one thing which came out of our peer review process. So basically we, I don't know if you already knew, but we had like a pilot program, and then we went out and took the curriculum of our pilot program and talked to a lot of people from the community and collected feedback. And one product of this feedback was also the Open Hardware Canvas. It brings together a lot of different modules, and what you will see is also that most of the things which you will find here on the canvas, you will learn during the program, or we will talk about more during the program. We have the different modules, and some of them, like for example, licenses and standards, this is an own module for like in our Open Hardware Makers program. All right. I don't know if you already know, for example, the canvas, the business canvas. This is something to build a business model and so on. It just brings like together a lot of important things and helps you actually to visualize and to visualize your project and also see where you have to put more energy into, and just to keep like things like maybe some not as obvious things still keep them in your mind. Because like something what Andreas was saying earlier, for example, like how to manage like input, like contributors and users and so on, and like provide different channels and documentation. This is something which is basically the whole half, the right third on the right side is basically only about that. So what we want you to do is actually to have a look at the canvas now as it is. We also prepared an example, and I will just quickly explain and go through each of these tiles. And we encourage you to do, not encourage, so that's something what you basically have to do before you meet your mentor, is to start filling out the Open Hardware Canvas. Just fill it with information, because then you can use the Open Hardware Canvas to talk more in detail to your mentor about what you want to work on and so on. So this is just a tool for you to help you also to go through this program. Right.
And you don't sorry, please go ahead.
And you don't need to know answers to all of them. So for example, licenses and standards, we will go really deep, we will talk about this, and there's a module about that. So you will hopefully know after the program what to put there, but you don't necessarily need to know right now.
Yeah, the canvas will change in time, right? And what I would say, for me, the canvas was really useful to get things out of my head and just put them out there and visualize them.
It's like also to do.
Yeah, yes, it could be a great checklist in one page. And it's great for pitching the project to someone, not to show the canvas, but for you to have a look and say, oh, this is the important thing. Do you want to say anything else about your project? Because this project is Alex's project.
This is my project, and what I did, I also just used like a really new project of mine, and I just want to follow along with the program as well and use it as an example, because I also have a hard time with documentation, also reaching out to contributors, users, and so on. So I use now a fairly new project of mine to, as I said, as an example, and I filled out the Open Hardware Canvas. And as you can see, I put some things there, for example, assembly instruction, what kind of instructions am I planning? So for example, here step-by-step, like written instruction, video instructions, bill of materials is not a detailed bill of materials, but this is what I want to dive deeper into later, but I just listed like the main parts and main electronics. Right. source files. So for example, which kind of source files I want to share. We will talk about this later in the program and go more into detail. What are good source files and what are like design files, things you just like export files, which you can forward and somebody can, for example, just print. This is useful, but sometimes you also want to modify, for example, a part, and then you need the source file, obviously. Well, I also talked a lot about licenses and standards. Well, project components, main part is the key proposition. And as Julieta already said, next week we will maybe a bit better, maybe you already have a good one, but next week we will also you have time to exchange, you can introduce yourself like to each other and so on. That's why we kept this a bit back for now.
Is it, sorry, Alex, is it me or you are cutting off a lot?
About your key proposition.
Yeah, it's the same for me.
Yeah, Alex, I don't know if there's anything you can.
About that.
Yeah, if you can repeat the last part because I totally missed that.
Sorry about that. It was just saying that the key proposition is something we will polish next week, like the next cohort call. And this is what we also will use for, that you can introduce yourself, your projects and so on. That's why we were keeping this back today. Yeah, please let me know if my internet connection is a bit unstable. I'm on the countryside, unfortunately. Anyway, yeah, resources required, similar projects. This is also like an important part. Look for similar projects because do not reinvent the wheel. If there's something already developed, you can use that. And yeah, well, on the on the right side, there's everything about the contributors, about the users, the contributor channels, user channels. They should be different. And there's also a difference between a contributor documentation and a user documentation. We will talk about this for much more time, longer time in later modules. And with this, I want to close the open hardware canvas part. Please take your time, take a look at it. As I said, it's basically a big to-do list for you to check, like basically check all the things you have to do to, in the end up with a great open hardware project.
And if you go to the curriculum, I don't know if you have that link at hand. I think it is in the notes, but there is an editable version. It's a Google Drive slide, basically with 2 slides. One that has the instructions that we were looking at before this one, and the other one that is empty. So you can use that. That will be easier than trying to do it yourself. Just make a copy. Don't overwrite the one we have. That's it. But don't panic because it's a lot of information, but we will go through each module trying to check and put all the information in this. Also, in the similar projects, you can make a much better case for your project if you're aware of what others are doing. That sounds much serious, right? Because we hear a lot that someone had a great idea. Usually there is someone out there who already did that. So it's much better if you say, out there is this project. Mine is different because that sounds better. Okay, so shall we move on, Alex? Yeah, okay. So, something we wanted to talk about today is that next week you will be meeting your mentor. And it's quite important because it's your first meeting and kind of sets the tone for the rest of the meetings. So there are some things that it's good to make sure you have done before. I would say module Open Hardware Basics, of course, have it clear. That's easy. It has no assignments. Module 1, which is the one that we are working on this week, that has assignments, and it's great if you can do them. We have seen some of them today, Working Open, the Open Hardware Canvas. Again, this doesn't have to be perfect. It's just a draft. And maybe the most important thing you could do before meeting your mentor is thinking of potential goals you have for your project for the duration of this program. So we will be working together between 14 and 15 weeks. It's quite a lot of information to absorb. We know that. And that's why we kind of revisit that information during these calls. So try to think of a goal you can achieve in this week. Your mentor will help you with this. That's why they are mentoring you, right? But try to pick goals that are achievable, that are realistic, that will contribute specifically. For example, I want to increase my number of contributors. I want to create more communication channels. I want to better understand how licenses work for my project, because I don't know, my project specifically has something very complex in there. Or I don't know, there are 1,000 goals you could choose to work on in this program. In fact, if you go to the canvas, that is a great source of potential goals to work on. You can talk about that with your mentor. In fact, you will be working on that next week with your mentor, because module 2, if you go to the curriculum, is staging your project. And that is basically project management. It's about trying to understand which are suitable goals for you, how to reach those goals, and how to manage open hardware projects. Once you've done that and you meet your mentor, there are some things to do during the meeting. First of all, I would say taking notes is the most important thing to do, because the mentor won't be taking notes, okay? Just for you to understand, when you are in, if you haven't been in a mentor-mentee relationship, usually you are responsible for getting the most out of it, right? The mentor, of course, is available, and we train mentors and we give them lots of ideas on how to better mentor mentees. But the responsibility finally is on your side. So ask questions, read about your mentor, Google your mentor. What is the area of specialty? Maybe this mentor is an expert in something that has nothing to do with your project. That's fine, because mentors are not supposed to be experts in your field, okay? But we have a list of experts too. So we have a list of experts. You can go to our website and check. If you need help, you can tell the mentor, oh, look, there is someone in this list I would really love to meet. Can you please contact me? And mentor can totally do that. Mentors usually have a lot of experience in trying to manage your project, which is, as Andreas was saying, precisely what we are looking for here. So we will send you an email. You probably realize that we send emails every Monday. We will send you an email next Monday, and that email will have the link for you to document your notes from the mentor. You could do this in a Google Doc. You could do this in a notepad locally in your computer. Honestly, we think that the best way to document these notes is in the GOSH forum, only if you don't have personal information, of course, because it's a public forum. Because if you do it in the forum, then maybe you're talking about a problem that someone else can comment on and give you a solution. Usually it's better to do it this way. If you don't want to do it anyway, let us know and we will find an alternative. I don't know, Alex, let me know, interrupt me if there are any questions on either on the chat or the notes, because I'm not looking at. Oh, sorry, I will try. It will. Yeah, I learned French at some point because I used to live in Geneva, but I was terrible. So.
No worries. I quickly have a question about taking note on the GOSH forum. Will there be a special thread about exchange note mentee-mentor, or how does this manage?
What we will do is we will create a thread per project, okay?
Yeah.
And we will leave you there just for help, kind of a template for the notes. And then you can just comment each meeting you have in the same thread. So you have them all in the same place.
Yeah.
We think that's the most useful way, so we don't have like 1,000 threads going around.
Yeah. Okay, great. Thanks a lot.
Okay. Is there any other question for that? Or anything? Okay. So what we're gonna do now, we're gonna discuss your mentorship expectations in breakout rooms. So what do you expect from your mentoring, and how can you get the best out of it? And here, I will try to encourage you to think what makes a good mentee. There is a reading that we shared in the notes about that. There's an article about that. But if you had to say it yourself just like that, what makes a good mentee for you? I will try to set up the breakout rooms here now. So welcome back, and let's take 2 minutes to kind of share back some of your discussions. Do you want to just open your mic and tell us what you were talking about?
Yeah, so maybe I can start if no one else wants. So
Go ahead.
yes, but I was in a breakout room with Denise, and one point where we both think that that would be a good point talking about with the mentor is how to set up collaboration with other people, how to get other people involved, how to set that up, what platforms to use best, how to approach people. I think, but at least for me, this is the one of the main points, and I guess for Denise it was about.
So collaborations in terms of contributors, or how to get more users, for example?
Well, in my case, it's both.
Okay.
I guess, well, we have some local contributors, so that's fine, but like any additional contributions, if it's just like using the thing, having feedback or actively contributing, everything would be welcome, I guess. And this is something we are still missing at all for the project.
That's great, and there is a lot there that mentors can help with, and also our curriculum has some ideas on that, of course. Any other discussions? They don't have to be super serious, just share.
So I was with Hilda and Alex, and we were discussing more about the right question. So maybe just make us think of something we would not have thought, but that would be very valuable in the project. So kind of guiding a bit in the right path. Yeah, I think this was kind of the main point.
That's great. And Alex, I don't know if you remember, one of the introductions, we had 4 mentors. One of the mentors said that he perceived his role as being unblocking the path through questioning. And I think that's precisely, yeah, that's on point. That's a great comment.
You will have a lot of time also to spend with each other, and this cohort calls are also times for peer review. So you are looking at each other's projects, and as I said, next time it will be more about yourself and about your project, about your value proposition, and then you also come together and talk. And this is also something I just want to encourage you, also give each other feedback, because well, I participated in a similar project, and actually I learned not like almost as much as with my mentor, with my peers, just by getting feedback. So
absolutely, yeah, we do encourage you to do that. Okay, so we're close to the end, and we wanted to share some things for next steps, let's say. So maybe be a bit obvious, but make sure you have scheduled your meeting with your mentor. Make sure you have agreed on a channel where to meet and a time. And if you have daylight savings, make sure that works right. Just a reminder, there is no cohort call next week. We are meeting again on April 7th. Check your email. The email with all the instructions will be there on Monday, especially for how to document and the thread that we were discussing earlier. Of course, you can always contact us. And we would like to finish this first cohort call with an open floor for questions from you on any other things you would like to discuss or you have questions on. We also encourage you, we know we are on time, but if you have feedback on this meeting, you can go to the notes, and the final section there allows you to give feedback, and that is super useful because we are also doing this for the first time. So it'd be great to have your opinions there. So now it's just 2-3 minutes to just comments, questions, and anything you have doubts on.
I have one comment, which is saying thank you for actually starting this whole thing. And I think it's well, it was the first call today, but I'm already very excited to be part of it. And yeah, thank you very much for setting this up. And I would actually know a little bit more how you actually did this, and if you have like some funding or something like that. I'm not sure if it's like time for this right now, but this is something I would be interested in.
Alex, do you want to wait? Is there any other questions so we can collect 2 or 3 and just? No? Okay. I can start, and Alex, you tell me.
There's some writing.
Oh, okay.
Sorry, I'm a bit behind, but I think there is feedback in the doc. Yeah, please go ahead, Juli. You can start. About, do you want to answer the question? Or
sure. So I can start. Open Hardware Makers was a fork of a program called Open Leaders. It was run by the Mozilla Foundation, which is like the non-profit of Mozilla, the one that develops Firefox, the company. So Mozilla had this program that was for training leaders in open source. And Alex, Andre, and we all went through that program from our different pathways in life. And we, after some time, Open Leaders, like the Mozilla nonprofit, said, okay, enough with this. We don't want to run this anymore. And as just not to let it die there, the organizer of the Mozilla Open Leaders decided to run a cohort of people who wanted to create mentorship programs for different domains. And Alex and Andre and I were already in contact because of this program, and we were in contact because all of us were working on hardware, which was something quite different from the rest, which were working more on data or software on the science side always. And we said, okay, why not we apply with a cohort for open hardware? And we did that. We also had another member, Jose, was working with us at the time. And we ran a pilot of our program. That was 2 years ago, 1 year ago. I mean, the pandemic just, and we ran the pilot, and it was good. And the 3 of us we agreed that the curriculum that was the base, which you now access, we had it written ourselves. And I didn't particularly feel very comfortable with that. I preferred it to be an open thing that had more inputs from the community, and Andrea and Alex agreed on that. So we kind of went into the journey of making it a very participatory review of the curriculum. And that happened all the last year, I think, which was a super long project, kind of gathering comments from everywhere and then incorporating them back, which was really hard. But then we had a curriculum, as you see today, which is a result of a community participatory project, which is great. And we are running now this cohort based on that resource. So up to now, the project has been mostly run on a voluntary basis. Mozilla gave us a small grant in the beginning to run this participatory curriculum edition. And we are actively applying for funding now in 2 ways. We are applying for research grants, let's say. We applied recently to one for Code for Science and Society. And we are also trying to get sponsorships from hardware companies, for example, that may facilitate that you get products for free or things like that. So yeah, I don't know, Alex, if you want to add anything to that.
So I think there's nothing to add from my side. That's I think you answered it very well. So we got to know each other. We met also in China. We are part of the gathering of open science hardware, and that's when we met. And I think that was also where we talked a lot about like maybe doing something like this in the future. Yeah.
That's why the forum is in the Gosh forum, right?
These are our roots, but this is also important to us that it's not all about science. It's also about other fun stuff.
Yeah.
I looked already in the document. There's no other questions. If there is any, just let us know now.
Yeah, and thank you for that question. In fact, we never thought that we realized in our cohort call yesterday that we haven't introduced ourselves yesterday. So that's why we introduced ourselves first today.
Yeah, but you will have time to introduce yourself, as I said, in the next cohort call. And yeah. All right. Then with this, we want to close. Do you have anything to add, Rudi?
No, thank you. Thank you for joining and for following along with everything. We know we had enough virtual meetings for 2 years, so we know it's hard. Thank you for being here and so active. Appreciate that. Okay, then see you all in 2 weeks, and be ready to just post your questions in the forum, interact in the forum, and let us know if you have any questions. Okay.
Awesome. Thanks.
Bye.
Thank you
Bye.
very much. Goodbye. Goodbye.